What's up, everybody? It's Mike here with another New World video. This one I had a recording. I went over the last alpha patch notes, the last big change before release. But it's more than just reading the patch notes. We're talking about my thoughts, questions, comments, a little humor in there. So check it out. Leave me a message. Tell me what you think about some of these changes, and we'll see you in Eternum. And now what I want to do is actually get into uh, the last patch. And if you come to newworld.com on their news page, they have a bunch of different articles, many of which I would link to patch notes and stuff. So if you're interested in reading about the game, like this is where I would start. There's a lot of good stuff here. And as you can see, they were releasing patch notes every month. So there's a March one, there's an April one, and the most recent one was May. So I'm not going to go through everything from previous patches. I am, however, going to go through every single thing in the May update. So I think it's kind of cool to go through patch notes. It can be a little tedious, I guess, when you go through everything, but I think it's cool to go through every single detail, not skip anything. It makes for a long video, but that's all right. So let's get into it. So Spotlight, new expeditions. So expeditions are what they're calling dungeons. They're 5-man dungeons. Um, they have announced 2 more: the Shattered Obelisk and the Depths. Sorry, this one's called Shattered Obelisk and the Depths. So, little background here. Um, a bunch of content creators were actually invited to try the first expedition the same day that that new cinematic trailer came out. So, if you want, like, go check out Force Gaming's video or Kier's video to actually see the gameplay of the dungeon. Those are some pretty awesome content creators, and they got some pretty cool stuff and gameplay and stuff footage. So if you want to see some gameplay footage, I highly recommend those. I will be talking a little bit about the kind of the feedback that they had about the dungeons, and essentially the negative comments that were made were exactly the same for both Kira and Force, and they basically just said that the dungeons was a little bit too easy. Um, but Amazon basically fully loaded parties and had them 5 levels over cap. It is the first dungeon too, so there's some questions about whether or not it's actually too easy. Um, Maybe the first dungeon will be too easy. I don't know. But there's a bunch of these dungeons that are in the game, 6 to be exact. They start at 25. This one that was announced, the Shattering Obelisk one, starts at 35. This one, the Depths one, was announced, starts at 45. You see a pattern here: 25, 35, 45. There's one that's been announced at level 60, which is the level cap. So that's an end game one. And there are 2 more that they didn't mention what the level was. So if I were a betting man, knowing there's a 25, a 35, a 45, I would guess there's going to be a 55. And the 5th one, I don't know, could be another 60. I'm not sure why they didn't announce the 2 in the middle, what levels they were. Maybe they hadn't decided yet. I'm not sure. Um, but yeah, Expeditions. So Expeditions 5-man dungeons. The original one that they let the content creators look at last week, or this week actually, were, I think they said, about 20-25 minutes in length. They all have 2 bosses in them. All 6 dungeons have 2 bosses in them. So when they're talking about them, like the Shattered Obelisk one, there's the 2 bosses here. So I'm not even going to try to pronounce half these names. Electos the Relentless, powerful mage, stood guard untold eons, focusing intense arcane energies. So they kind of describe like the lore of the boss. For our purposes, it's like there's a halfway boss and then an end boss. Bosses give good loot. Every dungeon has its own unique loot in this game, which is really cool. Looking forward to experiencing that. So that part's pretty cool. They also had some images here, so I don't know if people noticed this, but there's actually arrows. I don't think people notice this when they read patch notes. So the Shattered Obelisk one, let's take a look at those photos. Looks like a little ancient Egyptian dude. you'll see that the imagery in this game is actually pretty damn good, I think. Second expedition they announced was the Depths. This is where our flaming fire buddy comes in, I think. Commander Thorpe, that's who he is. So that's pretty cool. Again, 2 bosses. This one starts at 45. The cool thing that comes in these patch notes we'll talk about a little bit later is that you actually have to have an item in your party to actually go into these dungeons. I think originally you'll get some quests in here where the item that you need is actually provided so you can go in. But if you want to redo them, the ones that you can redo, and I don't know how many can be redone. They mentioned one-time dungeons as well as repeatable, so I don't know what the difference is, having not played since preview where these weren't even in. But yeah, you need these items to go in. So you can't just sit there and grind the dungeon all day. You actually need to eat the consumable item to actually get in. So that's going to be kind of interesting. They also said the consumable item is crafted and that you get a limited number per week. So we'll get to that a little bit later in the patch notes, but kind of interesting. They're going to be kind of a big deal that way because you're going to go in only so many times, and you're going to want to do well in there. So let's check out the images for this one. Interesting. You got like a fire boss and like all of these stalagmites and things, and yet the dungeon is in the water and like green. Maybe these aren't related. Who knows? Maybe the boss room is just like different. Oh yeah. You see it turning now. You see it turning. You start in this is probably near the entrance. It looks good, like it's all like healthy and green and like little camp and stuff. And then it starts to turn with some of this like demonic plant life stuff, and then it gets a little more sketchy. You can kind of see the divide here between kind of like normal on the right here and more scary on the left, like it's being corrupted. And then obviously the boss. Cool. I'm looking forward to these. I think they're gonna be great. Um, I'm kind of hoping that they'll make a longer one at some point, or maybe the higher level expeditions are longer. I don't know. Again, haven't tried them yet. But yeah, I guess for the first one being about 20 minutes, that's probably fine for an intro like dungeon. The other thing I wanted to mention actually about dungeons is that apparently these expeditions have both mobs and like puzzles or things you need to kind of figure out. If you go and watch, I was looking at Force's video earlier. He does kind of explain the puzzle in the first dungeon. It sounds like it's pretty straightforward. It's like standing on pressure plates. It's not really like super complicated or anything. But maybe they'll expand on that too. Like it reminds me of old games like Asheron's Call where you actually had to like solve riddles and stuff, which kind of cool to an extent. So that could be interesting. They can really do a lot with these things, and there's already going to be 6 in release. Like this is one of the reasons they delayed this game. They said we need more content in the game, and they've made 6 dungeons in like 6 or 7 months. That's pretty impressive, especially when you look at how they actually interact and how they look. They did reuse some character models. Again, that's some feedback from Force that I actually agree with. The boss that they're fighting is just a bigger version of some mob that already exists, which is kind of too bad. But it's also not the end of the world. I think at the end of the day, having content and unique drops and unique crafts that you can do from each dungeon really gives it a flavor that I really like, and I'm glad they added those. Okay, let's move on. Player titles. So they added player titles. It's very, very Korean MMORPG style thing to do. But I mean, other, Vanguard had titles. A bunch of other MMOs have titles. People like them. Kind of differentiates your character. Some of them are going to be account wide. Some are going to be character bound, which is interesting. So you have to go do them on multiple characters if you want to get the character bound ones on multiple people. Discoverable fast travel points is pretty nice. Another way to travel between points of interest. The one thing I would say about this game is fast traveling was limited. I don't know how much this is going to change it. I felt like they force you kind of along the roads for like PvP, which could be fun in some cases, but in other cases you just want to get someplace that you've already been. And when I was playing, you could fast travel only to your house, and you can only do that once an hour. Now they've changed that in these patch notes a little bit too. We'll get there in a minute, but ultimately they've made it less frequent for you to be able to actually fast travel to your home. And that's kind of a disadvantage for something that was already pretty limited. However, they made it easier for you to have multiple houses. So I don't know if it shows a cooldown, but you can fast travel to your houses, probably in different provinces a lot quicker, or whatever you want to call them, areas. But these fast travel points are actually going to help that a lot. The one question is, can you fast travel while doing PvP quests? Because you couldn't before, and most of the time you have PvP quests on you. So we'll have to test that out. But assuming that you don't instantly fail a PvP quest, I think fast travel points added to the game is really good. It also adds an Azoth sync because it costs Azoth to fast travel, and that's good for two reasons. Number one, you ended up being capped on Azoth quite often, unless you were crafting during your gameplay, which I don't know about you guys, but I usually craft at the end or beginning of my gameplay, not like always kind of fight some stuff for a couple hours, go and craft, fight some stuff, kind of like that. It's not really my style. So having an Azoth sync is probably a good thing as well for that. This is really cool. So they've added elite points of interest in the game. So basically what that means is there's going to be specific points on the map where you're going to want to go. You're going to kill some elite guys. There's probably going to be some big chest that's there, which they actually nerfed the loot on a little bit to stop people just camping it all day long, which I think is also a good thing. But that should be another area to like congregate people, which is great because you're congregating people in an open world PvP game. PvP being optional, by the way, if you didn't know that. But it just entices people to go to the same spot, which is always good for getting people to get each other killed, which is fun. So I really like that. Resource distribution has been remapped in each territory. Oh, they call them territories. There's our answer. To pair with player progression. So it sounds like efficiency's here. That's great. But the other thing that's great about this change is that the people who've been playing alpha for like a year and a half will not know exactly where everything is. Which for the rest of us is good, puts it more of on an even playing field. So I think that's really good. When I played the preview event, one of the issues was I think it was oil. I think it was oil. It was like super hard to find. There's only a couple places for it, so there weren't enough nodes. And that can be really frustrating for players if there's not enough nodes, and the places where you know there's nodes, they're always gone because everybody knows they're there, and there's just not enough. So I think hopefully this balance will maybe address that issue. Corruption breaches have been converted to elite content, with elite affixes now applied to key enemies. So last patch they added these elite affixes, and my understanding is that they're randomly generated each time a mob of an elite version is spawned. And if you guys have played any dungeon crawlers like Path of Exile or anything like that, mobs will have like special statistics like extra toughness, or they're resistant to magic, or they shoot fireballs after they die or while they're alive, or whatever it is. And I think from what I understand is that the elites in this game now have them, but they're also randomly generated, which means the same elite can have different affixes each time it spawns. I'm not 100% sure about that, but I believe that's correct. And so that adds a little bit of flavor to it, because if you're sitting there camping an elite mob for some gear that you want him to drop you, sometimes he might be easy for your build, and the next time he spawns, it might be hella difficult. So it's kind of nice to have a little bit of a differentiation even within the same mob. So that's kind of cool. And basically, what this is saying is that the corruption breaches, which is just another aspect of content in the game where you can get different types of loot, have been upgraded to elite. So they're going to be a little bit harder, and they're going to be a little more fun too. It's going to be more mixed bag. Okay, quest updates. Added 2 new story quests. Added some quests to the new areas that they've added. Couple things, yeah, like another reason they extended the game. They added 2 new whole areas since August, so that's really cool. Faction control points. Increased the time required to capture forts. So they made the forts in areas. So there's every territory has a fort, and it's where the big wars happen, which is the faction versus faction instant PvP thing, where like your faction is either attacking a fort or your faction is defending your fort. and there's 50 people on each side, and it's capped and it's instanced, and you fight over the fort for 15 minutes or whatever. And if you capture the flag, you get to win the territory. If you defend the flag, you get to keep the territory. And when that's not happening, they decided to make the forts open world, capturable as well to a certain extent, which basically gives anybody in that faction who's in that territory at the time a benefit. So you don't control the whole territory, but you can control the fort. If you control the fort, you get a little more experience, a little better drops or whatever it is. So it's kind of entices you to, like, when you enter an area, go to the fort, capture it, and then do your stuff that you have to do in the area. They've made this a little bit longer to take over. It's a little bit interesting to me though. Like, a solo player has to sit there for 5 minutes. So, if I'm playing solo and I'm in a zone and I want to go take over the fort, I'm just like gonna go sit my guy in there and then like go make a snack and come back, or like lose every single one of my Twitch viewers because I'm just standing in a fort for 5 minutes by myself. A little bit weird. Um, 5 people go in there. It's 2.5 minutes. That's not so bad, but like on the other side of the equation, like if I had gone in and controlled the fort and I'm like looting and stuff and like doing quests in the area, and it's like, oh yeah, someone's trying to take over your fort that you just captured. There's no way in hell I'm gonna get there in 2 minutes and 30 seconds. I could be all the way across the zone. Like, if the idea is to entice people to like fight over the control of the fort, I'm not sure that this is gonna do it. I'm not sure that people will care enough to go take it over. I'm not sure anyone will be able to defend it. Uh, yeah, I'm not too sure about this one, to be perfectly honest with you. But anyway, I guess we'll see how it goes. They did limit 25 people per faction near the same fort, so they don't want like one faction to zerg it. Um, I don't know that we're ever gonna have 75 people in there open world, but sure, we'll just go with it. Housing. Okay, so this is what I was mentioning before. So they've changed housing a bit. So it used to be that every house that you bought got like way more expensive. Like, your first house was reasonable, your second house was stupid, your third house was almost unattainable, your fourth house is like see in a year kind of thing. So now what they've done is they've locked in the cost of housing regardless of how many you have, which is nice, and they've priced them on tiers. So tier 1 to tier 4, and you'll see the primary differences are the first two lines here. Tier 1 house, you can only fast travel once every 4 hours. That is not a lot. That's like twice a day in a gaming session or less. Um, Storage furniture, only one. So that's kind of a big deal too, because if you go to tier 2, you get twice that. Tier 3, tier 4. So you get a lot more storage, 4, 3, 2, and 1, and the fast travel is 4 hours to 3 hours to 2.5 to 2. So if you get a tier 4 house, you can fast travel every 2 hours, and you can store a lot of stuff. This makes me think that the fast travel cooldown is per territory. Because if you can easily own a tier 1 house over here and a tier 4 house over there, and which cooldowns you're going to use. So I actually think it's based on territory. So you may be able to fast travel this territory every 4 hours, which may be okay in a rare territory that you don't go to very often. Or you can fast travel this one every 2 hours that you use more often. So that could be how you kind of determine, which house you use, which house you buy. Of course, also if you have enough gold, but that's kind of obvious. Number of pets, number of lights, territory standing required. So number of pets and lights, I don't give a shit about that. That doesn't mean anything to me. Like, I'm not gonna be decorating my house. That's a waste of time, in my opinion. Some people like it. Kudos to you. Have fun with it. There's a furniture crafting thing, and I look forward to never buying anything you make. But you can buy mine if I make something, so feel free on that. Territory standing, you have to do quests in a territory to get territory standing. So you can't just go in and buy a house without doing some quests there. So that's kind of actually good. I like that. Faction missions. Remove gathering crafting missions from faction missions. So you can't just go harvest stuff anymore and get faction credit. Uh, Reduce chest and kill count requirements to ensure players can find all the targets. That's nice. Nobody wants to wait on respawns ever. Removed mission board access in territories where players have not reached the minimum level. So that's good. You can't just like run to an area and do a bunch of crafting missions which no longer exist for an area you shouldn't be in. Just for higher EXP. Optimize placements of mission point of interest target locations. Daily bonuses add for the first 3 faction missions each day. So this is really cool. This is their like hook to get you in to come do 3 faction missions every day. Log in, kick some ass, take some names. That's their daily like the game bait, I guess. Faction mission rewards have been rebalanced and focused around gaining faction tokens. So there's a lot of stuff in this patch about faction tokens. There's a faction shop, so you do faction missions. You flag for PvP to do the PvP versions. You don't flag for PvP to do the PvE versions. The first 3 are worth a lot. You get a bunch of faction tokens. You go to the store, you buy faction-specific dyes and gear and weapons and stuff. That's kind of cool, like that. Faction missions now award reputation and faction tokens, so you can get more faction tokens. You also get them through PvP, by the way. Players will automatically be granted quests and encourage them to earn enough reputation to achieve their next rank. Okay. Trial quests are now key to unlock the next faction rank. So every time you get to a faction rank buffer, you're going to get a quest you got to go do. And you don't need tokens for those. That's cool. So you can keep all your tokens for buying stuff. Sweet. XP and leveling. We've adjusted our leveling curves. Rest experience to speed up leveling for casual players. This is kind of a joke. This one's kind of funny. You'll see what I mean in a minute here. The XP per level curve has been adjusted to increase rewards of doing quests lower than your level. So XP per level curve have been adjusted to increase the rewards of doing quests lower than your level. So they've made it so that it's not a waste of time to do quests below your level. Okay. XP for killing monsters has been adjusted. Gold and silver border monsters now grant more EXP. So harder mobs give more XP. That's great. Expedition quests now grant significantly more EXP. So the expedition, remember, those are the dungeons. Dungeon quests, lots of EXP. Territory standing levels now grant experience when acquired. Okay, that's good. So just because you've leveled up your standing, you get experience. The number of EXP bonus card that a territory can grant when leveling up has been limited and capped to provide maximum 10.3%. So when you level up your territory standing, you get an option to like boost something. Like buying things at the auction house is cheaper, has less tax or whatever it is. Buying houses is cheaper, or gaining more experience in the zone, which they've now capped. AKA, this is the best one. Cap it out. That's the way I read that. If they have to cap something, it means it's too good. It means you should get it. Faction missions had their experience rebalanced to match new leveling curve. Added new daily bonus. So this is the first 3 faction missions that we talked about. Okay. New point of interest now grants more experience when revealed. So now even going to point of interest gives you experience. Gathering trade skills now grant experience per level gain, smelting, crafting. Okay, and then if you pick up journal pages, just like random lore things that you can pick up. So basically, doing everything gives you more experience. Here's the part that I was thinking was a fucking joke, but anyway. Rest EXP. Reduced wait time before beginning to generate rest XP from 12 hours to 8 hours. That means you literally have to be offline for 8 hours before you get any rest XP. I don't know about you, but I usually sleep for about 8 hours. So anybody who's planning on sleeping and playing, you don't even have to worry about rest XP because you're not going to get any. Okay, so that's fine, whatever. This is talking about casual players, not people like me. Raise the cap for total rest XP from 100% of a level to 150% level, which means if you cap out, you're going to get probably double EXP for the next 1.5 levels. So you're going to like get a level and a half way quicker than you would have otherwise. Decrease the rate at which XP is gained from 2% per hour to 1% per hour. Okay, now, unless my math is incorrect, what this means is you need 150 as the cap hours, because it's 1% per hour, of time offline to cap your rest XP. However, it doesn't even start until you've been offline for 8 hours. Okay? So let's just grab the calculator here. I do 158 hours divided by 24 hours means in order to get 1.5 levels of bonus experience, which isn't even like, it's not like you leveled up, you still have to go get the experience. You're going to have to be offline for 6.5 days, 6.6 days offline straight without logging in. 6.5, over 6.5. Like, you only play on Saturdays? Is that okay? So anyway, we won't harp on this too much. I think this is crazy. I don't think it's very valuable. I think most people will have like 2% of rest experience because they've been offline for, time to sleep and have breakfast or whatever, especially on weekends. I mean, even if you're offline for like all weekdays, right? What we got here? 5 times 24, that's an entire week. 120 hours, less 8, right? So you're going to have about 1 level ready to go. If all you do is play on weekends, every time you log in on Saturday, you're going to have about 110% or whatever. Something like that. All right. I don't think it's that great. It won't really impact me though, so it's all good. Leveling milestones, bag slot 1 is now unlocked at 10 instead of 1. So you don't get a bag slot immediately. But here's the thing. I don't remember in the preview how long it took me to get a bag. I bet you I was higher than level 10 though when I crafted my first bag, so this doesn't change anything. You have the slot, you can't get the bag. So now you get the slot when you can get a bag. It's fine. Ring slot is unlocked later in the game, so don't expect any rings to drop from mobs until you're level 20 is how I read that, or 19 or something. Because like, why would they be dropping rings if you can't use them, right? It doesn't make any sense. Same thing with earrings. You're not going to see any earrings drop until later in the game. Okay, moving on. We've adjusted PvP flag rewards to incentivize PvP activity and provide a more meaningful reward for endgame players. This is really good. This is all good news. You now gain experience, faction tokens, and items when you kill a player. Hells yeah. Okay. The rewards are based on how long the player has been alive while flagged. Players only drop rewards after a minimum threshold. Removed 10% experience gain while being flagged. Okay, so at first look, you're like, well, it says gain experience here, but you lose. So this is talking about PvE. You don't get any extra experience for killing mobs while you're flagged for PvP, which I'm fine with. I get that they were originally thinking, like, let's entice people to do it. The worst part about open world PvP is when you're pulling like 6 mobs and some asshole jumps you. So enticing people to do it for that reason is a terrible idea. So they got rid of that. It's fine. You get experience for killing players, other players, not mobs, but players, faction tokens, and item rewards. Okay, so I like this. I especially like the next part where it says the longer the person has been alive, the better loot you get, which means if you're killing someone who's really good, you should get better drops. That makes sense to me. I like this a lot. What I don't understand is why they give zero details on what that means. Okay, so the next line here, players only drop after minimum threshold. They also don't give details here, but I'm assuming this is like 10 minutes or something. You can't just corpse camp somebody forever and get loot off them. That's good. Fine, you know. But is it 10 minutes? Is it 5 minutes? Is it half an hour? I don't know. That would have been nice to know. But this is even more important. You know, based on how long they've been alive while flagged. Two questions for me. Number one is, does going to town reset this? Okay, so how you flag for PvP in this game is you go into town and you flag during your like in town, you're safe, whatever. You have to do. You can't flag out in the open world and then jump somebody. You have to be flagged in a town. You have to unflag in a town. Okay, but are people A going to grief the other faction by unflagging and reflagging every time they go to town to reset their counter? Number two is, does being in town automatically reset it? And in my mind, it should, because if it doesn't, people are in town crafting and whatever the hell. The most valuable time to kill someone will be when they're leaving town if it doesn't reset. And that's just going to cause a bunch of Zerg parties to sit around outside every town and just murder people as they come out of town. So I pray to God that this resets every time you go to town without you having to do it manually. It just resets, right? Because people can be AFK in town for like 5 hours and then they go outside and they're worth a ton of shit to kill them. Makes no sense. But also, the other thing I want to know is what are the tranches here, right? If I kill someone who hasn't been killed in like an hour, is that the same as killing someone who hasn't died in a week? You know, like what are the tranches here? What is the upper tranche, most importantly? But what are the tranches? Is it every 10 minutes? You know, is it every half an hour? Is it every hour? Is it every day? Is it cumulative for like ever? Like, what kind of rewards are we talking about here? So I have a lot of questions about this. I like it. I like all of that stuff. I think all of this stuff is really, really good. Obviously, the EXP gain drops off when you hit max level, whatever. You still get faction tokens and items. What are the items? You know, is it just like here's your 10 gold? Because that's fucking waste of time. I'm gonna kill everybody anyway. It doesn't matter. But if it's 10 gold, then you're wasting my time, right? I don't call that an item drop. So I want more information on here, and I guess on July 20th, I'm gonna be killing someone, camping them outside of town to see what they drop, to see if it resets and all that kind of stuff. So I'll be doing some testing there, but that's really what I want to know more about with that one. Darkness events no longer give faction tokens. I have no idea what a darkness event is. I haven't heard anyone, any streamer mention even what this is. I assume it's some kind of like open world event, but I honestly don't know. Update town project, add town maintenance category. So this just gives you some stuff to do. You can always do some maintenance projects for your town that your faction controls or whatever. So that's kind of nice. And I think you get, yeah, so you get some ingredients and stuff for doing this. They've added fishing recently, I think late last year. So I haven't tried that yet either. So that should be interesting as well. And it leads into the cooking, so they really made the cooking robust with the fishing additions. Gold rebalance. There's some caps for companies and players. They decrease the gap in earning gold. So basically, they're trying to discourage you just rushing to the end just so you can get rich. Um, it's the progression of gold is going to be better, essentially what they're saying here. Gold sources. So you're getting a large amount of gold from quests, expedition, wars, invasions, the daily 3 bonus faction missions. I like this. You spend like an hour doing a war, for example, and especially if your faction gets slaughtered, doesn't win, you're like, man, I just wasted an hour. I could have been doing other things. So they're giving you a bunch of gold and stuff for doing it. So that's really good. I like that quite a bit. All right, so gold sources, that's good. Um, Smaller percentage of gold from killing creatures. So they're trying to discourage just grinding stuff. Like the things that people were grinding a lot uh, is killing just mobs and running faction missions and the corrupted breaches. So they've discouraged that a little bit, which is good. Creatures now have a chance to drop coin instead of guaranteed drop, so that's good too. Gold costs, the houses no longer cost this, so this is what I was talking about. Before it was first, second, third house. It kept going up like this. Now it's the quality of house that indicates how much it costs. So you can get 4 tier 4 houses all over the world versus one like good house in one area, so that's good. Housing tax increased, so they're going to collect some gold sinks there. Coin costs to repair has been reduced, and they wrote this twice, so it must be really important. I actually think they just missed that, but anyway, doesn't matter. Okay, increase cooldowns large elite point of interest from 1 hour to 24 hours. This is what I was talking about earlier. They don't want people just camping these guys constantly. They want you to go there. They want it to be worth it, but they don't want you to just sit there all day and zerg people who come and try to kill it. So that's kind of good. It's also boring from the player standpoint. Just sit there and like hold a spot and grind the same guy over and over. So it's good for everybody. Added more named weapons drop discovered through Eternum, including 260 weapon trinkets from named monsters in open world. That's cool. So like just name mobs around the world will give you unique stuff. That's cool. I like that. Weapon rewards drops have been rebalanced, so that's just a balancing thing. Added visual variety weapon armor sets throughout the game. This is cool. So basically what it's saying is like if you kill a specific elite guy or a type of mob and you put their gear on it, people are going to know that you killed an undead guy to get that or whatever. It's going to be cool. And this is really good. Change specific weapon rewards for quest starting zones so players can have a chance at a wider variety of weapons. So you can try a bunch of stuff early on in your playstyle, which is really cool. So one thing you may not know about this game is that it's not a class game. You just pick up a weapon and you use it. And if you're using a bow, then you get better at using bows, and then you get skills with a bow that you can use. If you pick up a fire staff, then you can use fire staff stuff, and the more you use it, the better you get, and that's it. Doesn't matter what class you are really. There are some stats and things that will augment your damage and things. So like if you get a bunch of int, it's going to help you with fire staff. It's not going to help you with your bow. So there's a little bit of specialization in it, but anybody can use anything, which is kind of cool. Dropping items, you now drop items, nobody can see it. If you leave it on the ground, it disappears. There's a secure player-to-player trading system in place, so you don't drop things to trade. Tuning orbs. This is what I was talking about earlier. You need a tuning orb to get access to expeditions or dungeons. And you can only craft so many per day. It's with stonemasonry. The higher level expeditions take more valuable tuning orbs, and you have to go get mats for them, including the elite POI chests, which are going to be where you get murdered the most with other people, unless you unflag before you go up there. Max gear score kept 600. This is going to be crazy to get to 600. That's what this says. It's going to be very difficult to get the best gear, which is good. Gives you reason to play for a long time. Crafting and gathering. Crafting armors are now rare drops and containers like elite points of interest. So this is an armor that makes you better at crafting. So something you would throw on before you go craft, which I will 100% forget to do every time. But that's kind of cool. They adjusted some EXP to level up the same level or same time as other things. They had an issue with skinning, where your skinning wouldn't level up as quickly as your tanning would. Obviously, skinning and tanning are related. You skin the fucking thing and then you tan it, right? Like that's so you don't want to have one that's not balanced with the other. So that's what they did there. Equipment sets. So this is the same kind of thing that I mentioned above. Like it's going to look like the guys that are doing it. You put on a Forsaken armor set. It's going to be obvious that it's Forsaken armor. Adjusted rarity values on food ingredients, perk roll odds, change. So basically, this looks like a nerf to me. Adjust perk roll odds on dropped items at all tiers, specifically balance number of epics dropping. So they're going to reduce the amount of epic drops. That's the way I read that. Yep. And Azoth's Vial now provide 50 instead of 13. I think there's something that drops that gives you Azoth. So if you need Azoth, say you're crafting and you ran out of Azoth, you're going to drink a bunch of this crap and then you're good to go. Dyes, I was really happy about this one. Increase the number of craftable dyes, added dye pigments to the world. Dye pigments now come from a special type of plant. Faction specific dyes. When I played the preview event, the dye system in this game was atrociously bad. Probably the worst dye system I have ever seen in any MMO ever created that I could even fathom. They were terrible. I can't stress this enough. So the fact that they've changed them and overhauled them, super good. I like dyes. I like looking cool in MMOs. It's part of the game to me. I know a lot of people agree. Having a good dye system is important, and I think that's great, especially with the faction-specific ones. That's kind of cool. Most likely be wearing faction-specific dyes. Let people know what is up. Furnishings. So here's the here's the worst crafting thing in the game, but they've made it a little better. They've limited the number of things you can make because it was really just a drain on wood that you could have used elsewhere, in my opinion. Recipes have a minimum level, so you're gonna find them around the world. Maybe they'll be a little bit more important to actually like find them and actually use them. Maybe you'll make some money off of them instead of them being a waste of time. And they updated trophies. So trophies are things you put in your house. They give you buffs. When you do certain things and find certain stuff, you can craft to them and make them better. That's going to be really good. Gives you a point of doing it, which is the main thing that you need, not just because you wanted to for no reason. There's actually a reason to do it, which is good. Okay, skipping over that. They added some social stuff. You can now easily talk to people, invite them to the group, kick them from your group, yada, yada, yada. They updated the, excuse me, They updated the enemy AI, so they're making the mobs smarter and do more stuff, make it more interesting. Balance. They did a bunch of changes to block here. So there's a couple things here in the next section that's all about block, particularly this section and some of this. Basically, in my mind, they nerfed block to make it so that you can't just block nonstop all the time, which is good because getting through block is difficult, and in PvP that's just annoying. Somebody's just sitting there like blocking with their shield forever. Um, it's not fun. So basically, if you do that, you're going to lose a bunch of stamina. You're not going to be able to block all the time. They adjusted the base damage, crit chance, and all this stuff of weapons. So basically, they just want they've made a few changes to stats recently. I think in the preview event, people would just go like max out Constitution because the stats into like strength and dexterity to cause more damage wasn't really doing much, scaling much. So they've changed that a bunch. They've decreased the value of weapons to begin with to make the stats add more. They've also done this where like now adding more is going to give you more. So they really want you to put your points into dex occasionally, which is the whole point of the stat. Like that's just needed to happen. So now like you're going to have a really tough time choosing between do I need more damage or do I need more health, right? Or do I want to try this or that or whatever. So now that it's more balanced, that's what they need to do. Adjusted value of perks. Consumers weapons. Yeah, so this is just adjusting the stats on items to match with some of these statistical changes they've made with everything else. Reduced equip load block stability bonus for heavy armor from 25 to 15. So again, block stability, it's gonna take more stamina to block even when you're in heavy armor. That's what that says. Sturdy block perk is no longer on swords because they didn't want them to double dip with shields. So anyone who uses a basic sword can also use a shield. He had stability on both, or sturdy, or whatever the hell it's called. You could just like tank all day and shield all day, so they've nerfed that. Reduced heavy armor damage mitigation by 5%, increased light armor damage mitigation. So they're kind of decreasing the mitigation on the heavy and increasing it on the light, put them a little closer together so it's not like super ridiculous. Alright, increase the rate at which attributes are earned to help with combat. So you're going to get attributes quicker earlier on, and slower later on. You're still getting 190 by the end of the game. For those of you who don't know, there are extra bonuses every 50 that you put into each thing, capping at 300. So my idea, the ultimate goal is to have min-max 300 constitution and 300 strength or whatever. 300 dex, 300 int, 300, but always 300 constitution. So you need 600 preferably. I'm dying here. Get some water. So you need 600. Can you get to 600 with only getting 190 from progression? I don't know. It does seem like gear is going to give you a lot, so that's the good news. The bad news is they nerfed a whole bunch from this patch. So you can see the strength. The 50 bonus used to give melee light attack damage 15% increase. That got nerfed all the way down to 5. Ouch. The heavy attacks from 20 to 10. Nerf. Damage against stunned and slowed from 20 to 10. Like, these are all huge nerfs. You're like, well, if they're nerfing strength, I'm just going to play dex. Well, hold on, because they nerfed the shit out of that too. Crit hit damage bonus nerfed by 50%. Backstab headshot damage nerfed by 50%. Critical damage bonus against stunned and rooted enemies nerfed by 67%. Ouch. Ouch, ouch, ouch. Like huge nerfs. They nerfed the int crit damage by 50% and the elemental damage by a little bit, 25%. No nerfs whatsoever to focus. So I guess life mages are right where they're at, where they want them. Some of the dex nerfs are a little bit offset by this one. Reduction in critical damage bonus. So this is critical damage you take. Reduce. So constitution. When you get 150 constitution, if you get crit, you used to take 20% less. Now you take 10% less. So crits are going to hurt more. That's how you read that. It kind of helps the dex people in PvP because, you know, most people have 150 constitution. I can't imagine anyone who doesn't have 150 constitution by the end of the game. That'd be crazy. And yeah, duration decrease on stuns and stuff decreased as well. So you're going to be stunned a little bit longer, is what that reads. Mana. I said I was going to read this line by line, but mana is fucking boring. I'll summarize this portion, all of this stuff. Essentially, what it says is before, if you had too much focus and or potions that gave you mana regen, you'd be capped on mana. You'd never be able to spend mana. You'd be full mana all the time. So they changed it. They moved it around. Mana food now makes sense. Focus now makes sense. You're not always going to be overcapped on mana, and that's the way it was meant to be anyway. Alright, let's get to the weapons and stuff. Straight sword and shield, they increased attack damage. Again, reduced block stability. So again, they don't want you to permanent block, because that's annoying. Reduce the damage bonus of several passive abilities on the tree, and reduce stamina reduction. So it made up a little bit here. Stamina reduction. Reduced stamina reduction. If you're reducing stamina reduction, does that mean you're reducing it more? It's like a double negative. I think what that means is it takes more stamina to block. I think. But it's been a long day, so I actually don't know if that makes sense to me. Let's go on to the Hatchet. Increased damage for multiple abilities. So Hatchet got a bit of a buff. Again, a reduction to block stability. So you can block with the Hatchet. You're just like holding out the Hatchet, like, oh god, don't hit me. But block stability means how stable you are when you block. So now that it's reduced, it means it's going to stagger you more when you block, or take more stamina to block. Okay, Rapier got a buff, which is really good for me because I think this is the weapon I'm going to be using. I don't know, I've never tried it, so we'll see how it goes. Increased block stability. So this one actually got a buff on block stability, which makes a bit of sense, I guess, on Rapier, like you're parrying and stuff. It's kind of more of a block weapon. Who knows? Adjusted attack damage for basic sealed spear ability. Whenever they say increased, it's like a buff, and then they say adjusted, which makes me wonder if it's just the secret word for nerf or decrease, or if it just means that some went up and some went down, which is probably what it means, and they just don't want to specify all the details. Adjusted attack damage, basic and several abilities. Again, adjusted. Some got stronger, some got weaker, be my guess. Great Axe, same damn thing. Bow, increased bow heavy attack damage. So if you take a really long wind-up shot with the bow, it'll do more damage. Okay, Musket, adjusted again. Life Staff, increase heavy attack damage, increase block stability, reduce mana cost, many abilities. So Life Staff got a buff because it didn't get nerfed in the focus changes because there was none, and it got buffed here. Increased attack damage for heavy attacks, several abilities. Fire Staff heavy attacks got buffed. Just the mana cooldown. So my take on the Fire Staff change is you're going to do more damage, you're going to do it less frequently. That's the way I read this. Ice Gauntlet, increased attack damage from heavy attack damage. Okay. And whatever the hell this is. Entombed Break ability. And flat stability on block. Okay, so the Ice Gauntlet, the Fire Staff, the Bow got increased to heavy damage. I'm betting this one has something to do with the Dex nerfs. It probably, when you did a heavy attack with all the crit and stuff, it could be crazy, but now that they've nerfed all the crit, it's probably not that big of a deal. That's my guess. And anybody's guess with adjusted means they're not very descriptive on this. I semi think it's a bit of a way to hide nerfs, but I don't know for sure. I'm just skeptical in general. I think what's going on here. They do say reduce in certain areas and adjusted in others, so maybe it's not a nerf. Maybe some things are just like buffed and other things are nerfed. That could be it. Alright, screenshots. This is cool. I didn't know that you could crouch. I wonder if you actually have to crouch in dungeons as like a way to get through things like this. Um, I played with a girl once who couldn't figure out how to jump properly, so I had to log into her account to like go up areas where you need to jump. Hopefully, I don't have to do that for someone for crouching. But anyway, it's kind of neat that you have to actually dodge mechanics like this in dungeons, if that's the case. This looks like maybe one of the mini bosses in that dungeon they announced. Oh, it's the same pictures as before. Cool. Whew, that was a mouthful and dried out my mouth for sure. Hence the water. All in all, pretty stoked about this. I think I'm going to post a more descriptive video on the YouTube channel here once I get through it again. But they do say this is the last major update, and in their developer notes, they basically say that they're just going to be working on um, bugs, polish, performance, and they do say diving deep into balance. So this may address the issue that I was talking about earlier, the macro balance issue of, a server is filled with 1,000 people max, according to them. I don't know if they're changing that or not. And you have 600 people on one faction, 300 on another faction, 100 on the last faction. Like, it doesn't make sense for that to happen. Even if the 100 people who are on faction C, like, play every damn day and don't log off, they're still going to get murdered by the faction with 600 people on it. So I don't know exactly what's going to happen here for the actual macro balance. When I played at the preview event, not only one faction but like one guild owned like 80% of the map, and nobody could take anything from them. And it's a question mark for something like this. It always is in these kinds of games. And hopefully, when they say diving deep into balance, they're talking about PvP balance, not PvE balance. I think the PvE balance is pretty good. If anything, like tweak the difficulty up a little bit maybe. But I guess we'll see how that works out when we get in there on July 20th. All right, so that's going to be it for the video today. I am going to be doing some more content. I highly recommend, if you're interested in the gameplay videos, check out Force's video, check out Kira's video. They're pretty cool. They're actually very different, even though they're doing the same dungeon. They show different things in them. I haven't checked anybody else's video, but there's a whole bunch of them obviously on here that you should check out if you're interested in some from fresh gameplay. Um, Force was using the new Ice Gauntlet, which is cool because they just announced that last month. So I thought it was pretty cool to see that in action, and it actually looks really good. So I might try it out. Okay, so that's going to do it for today's video. Obviously a pretty long video there going through all those patch notes, but you can see the wealth of changes that Amazon's been doing with New World. All their monthly releases have been like this, which is crazy, so it's really awesome and exciting. Hope you enjoyed it. Leave me a comment below if you want to chat about your thoughts on these patch notes, previous patch notes, things you think I got right, things you think I got wrong. Um, Definitely, if you can, leave me a like or click that sub button. As a new streamer and video creator, like this is a really big deal for me. It really fuels this kind of content creation, so really appreciate that. Those of you who've already done that, check me out on Twitch also. And stay tuned on this channel because I think tomorrow I'm going to be releasing another video talking about the fiasco with the cash shop in New World and my general thoughts about monetization of games and that sort of thing. So stay tuned for that as well, and take care.